3 tips by How beautiful it is to see your beautiful faces. So you were waiting for me saying hi guys, but no, I didn't. Today is a Friday, and so this is 3 Tips Friday, in which I give you 3 tips about something that I enjoy to do. The subject of the last 3 Tips Friday, I will put the link somewhere here, was about making video with your smartphone. I hope that you found that useful, and I hope that you found some ideas and some inspiration of that. I keep going with the same subject because I think that smartphone videography is something that can really be interesting, and there are a lot of things that we can tell about. So this other 3 Tips Friday is always about the same subject. I will give you 3 tips that are very important when you record video with a smartphone. The first tips that I give you is about your composition. When you have a smartphone, the first things that you have to do if you want to make a video with that is to see what the camera is framing exactly, and to have a composition that is interesting can be useful. So sometimes you can change the way in which you are framing the subject. Of course, if it's a talk head like this, your composition will be probably like yourself in the center of the screen, like right now. But especially with the smartphone, that is a very quick and easy and very handy object, you can have a composition that can be very interesting because you can use different angle. You can go very low on the, you can go very low on the, almost on the frame. You can really use the smartphone in a lot of ways. So take 1 second more to look for a more interesting composition. For example, today I made a quick video of my cat, and I did put the smartphone on the floor, so I had a different framing and was a little bit more cinematic. Also, if the smartphone actually was just standing on a tripod and was just there, and just the cat was moving. The second tip is about the resolution of your video. Most smartphones today allow you to record video in 1080. Some smartphones in the very, I think in the notch level, they allow you to record video in 4K. The big difference for that is the weight of the file that you have when you go to edit. So you have to consider when you go to edit if the computer or the laptop or the tablet in which you are going to edit the video is able to work, allow you to work in 4K. Otherwise, you rather go in 1080. The third tips that I'm giving you today is the frame rate. I will show you on iPhone how to modify the frame rate. On iPhone it's very easy. You can go in the settings of the camera like every smartphone. I don't have an Android smartphone with me, but I'm sure that online you will find tons of tutorial about frame rate and camera app for Android and so on. First of all, what is the frame rate? We know that a video is nothing different than basically a sequence of pictures that all together they give us the idea of the movement. The frame rate that you have is how many frames you have every second, and so I will talk now about FPS, frame rate, frame per second. Now, the most used cinematic frame rate is 24 frames per second. Is the one that you use, for example, when you record a movie. When they make movie, they work 24 frames per second, and is the more natural and more cinematic, and is also actually the one that I like more. In Europe, sometimes, especially indoor, you use 25 frames per second for something that is related to the power of the houses, because it's different the frequency of the power, so you need different frame per second to have not a flickering effect. You could decide to go also in, for example, 30 frames per second, and this is the kind of frame per second. This is the kind of frame rate that is very used on YouTube. For example, I know a lot of channels also that I follow. They record in 30 frames per second. I really don't get the reason. Sometimes I do, to avoid the flickering problem with the if I am indoor, because 30 frames per second, in my experience, also if from a scientific point of view is wrong, but in my experience it works to allow the problem. I personally use some time, for example, to make some b-roll. I use 60 frames per second because allow me to slow down the video a little bit and to have a little bit of that slow-mo effect that make any b-roll more cinematic and more nice and more appealing, if you want. So this is all for today. Subscribe the channel, turn on the ring bell, follow me on the social media, put a comment and tell me if you did like the video, and I'll see you at the next video, guys.